Good day, everyone. So obviously we've been having the debate between the hardcore players and the casual players, and everyone's saying, well, please don't add more endgame, and some people saying, well, we need more endgame. And I think let us just take a bit of a step back and look at something, for instance, like the Hyakunin Ikki event, and sort of see why an event like this is actually the perfect type of event that they could add for endgame, because not only does it cater for casual players, it can also fulfill a very nice gameplay loop for hardcore players. So let's sort of dig deeper and see how this can work. Now, for your entertainment in the background, you're going to see me choosing the easiest level with only trial characters and getting all of the Primogem rewards in the background. You're going to see me not using any advanced techniques, no animation cancels, nothing that can bring or induce any kind of stress. And the point about playing like this is that we can introduce end game content or game modes into Genshin Impact that are not only suitable for end game players, but can also be used by very casual players to still get rewards and feel like they can partake in these events, and in a certain sense also prep them for the time when their accounts are strong enough to compete at the end game level. This is what makes Hyakunin Ikki such a perfect event. You can attempt this event as an AR-30 player. You don't need to build any characters or teams. You can just use the trial characters. You're not going to miss out on any of the rewards. And what's even more beautiful is that if you are stressed because the game is taking too much time between doing all your commissions and all of the quests and stories and events, what's so beautiful about an event like this is that you can even end the event early, which you'll see me do in just about a minute or so. And you can then, the moment that you get like your 500 score, you can just then claim your Primogems and be off on your merry way. And one of the beautiful things here is that we didn't force anyone to take any excess anxiety. If they balance the events in such a way such that the lowest difficulty level can be cleared very easily with all of the trial characters, then yeah, most casual players will be able to partake in this, and it would be probably the most fair game mode that you can bring. So what about in-game players? Well, this is now where this event becomes really cool. So firstly, we don't need to have 6 teams of like 2 party members. We can easily scale this to, let's say, having 3 teams of 4 party members or 4 teams of 3. You can obviously change it and then have the different teams like tag team in and out. Obviously, you'll just need to adjust like the cooldowns and durations of swapping appropriately, but I mean, those are kind of like minor details. But the cool thing now is, because you have an event like this, you have a set amount of time that an in-game player can go into the event to try and get a as high a score as possible. And what's so cool about a mechanism like this is that you can now start to get a much more clearer and realistic sense of how strong your account is, because a score is something that you can always improve upon. A score is something that you can always look at and say, what if I change this and this up, and let me go and try again, and then you see, aha, if I just change up my teams, I can suddenly do a lot better. Or if I change this and this artifact, immediately my score goes up. And in a certain sense, this gives you a much more accurate representation, because you have only a limited amount of time to try and get the most amount of points. You are then in a much better position to assess how strong your account is, as opposed to having to clear a certain floor within a time limit, which ultimately says nothing. It's like the example that I've always given in the past is, you can have very strong F2P meta teams clearing a Spiral Abyss floor in about the same time as a whale would, simply because there is no real difference in terms of like the enemy level. So for instance, one enemy could have 100,000 K like HP, but if your F2P team does 120k and your whale sort of team does 300k, well, both of them are going to more or less clear in the same time, and hence there's no real benefit to actually having your whaled out characters. But in a game mode like Hyakunin Ikki, because there is sustained like fights going on, and it's forever looping and looping with higher and higher points that you can get. The differences should become clear, and they should also become clear if the developers progressively up the difficulty as your score goes higher and higher. In other words, you get higher level enemies that move around more often with higher cooldowns. They've got higher resistances and defense, so suddenly that F2P optimal team is going to sort of start plateauing in terms of its score, whereas your whale players should be able to have a much higher cadence, and then this sustained DPS should then be able to pull through. I think the cool thing, this is the essence of what an event like this can do. It can truly stress test a lot of different teams in a lot of different environments, and then show us what teams work well and what don't, especially if you start adding stage effects. So for instance, randomly some parts of the map become like water-like, or you add a bit of like vertical terrain, so characters like Venti can shine as well. There's so many different and cool ideas that you can put in here, but certainly the idea that I'm just going to stand in a Bennett circle and press a Xiongling Q is certainly a relic of the past. In an event like this, you're going to have to actively move. You're going to have to be very, very active. You can't just Kazuha Bennett everything. You're going to have to be creative, and this is where the potential of a game mode like this, or similar-ish modes like this, can be so useful. And yeah, that is why I really like this type of content. It can just teach you so much more. Of course, the current iteration of Hyakunin Ikki is very far from being a perfect event, because we don't have that dynamic scaling, and obviously certain things can be cheesed, if you sort of seen like the Totaglia Riptide events and so on. But certainly the foundation is there, and that's the key point of today's video. The foundation there is there to give us great content that can serve endgame players, and it can also serve casual players. And when it comes to rewards, all we want as endgame players might be stuff like giving us artifacts, giving us tokens to buy new skins in the game, which would actually involve Hoyoverse actually doing effort with their characters, but you get the idea. There's so much that you can do to reward casuals, and you then also to reward your long-standing players, perhaps new furniture in Teapot, I don't know. There's so many things you can do, but the point is we can't do these things if we don't take the first step in making this permanent endgame content. But yeah, so that's my opinion. I absolutely love this event. I just wish we had way more of it. Cheers.